So let's bring in CBS News senior White House reporter Jennifer Jacobs. Jennifer, it seems like members of the Trump administration are on the defense here.
Yeah, they are. I can tell you that President Trump was not thrilled by this whole episode. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. It was a very embarrassing situation. I know that the president has vented about this privately, but I don't think you'll be hearing very much from White House officials or from the president himself complaining about this. They are kind of trying to tamp down some of the public commentary, but behind the scenes, there has been concern. I know that the use of signal is prevalent in this administration. It was prevalent in the previous administration under President Biden. But there have been questions this morning as folks in the administration just sort of double check that they're using safe protocols as they use these non-governmental apps. They're very convenient. They're super accessible for people who are on the fly, running about, doing the president's business for him. But with the classified system, oftentimes White House officials who have access to that classified information have two computers on their desks, and one is for classified information and one is for non. The computers might look really similar, but the software inside looks completely different. And you have to use that information because one of the reasons you use that classified computer, that classified system, is you can't add someone who's not in the system. You would never be able to add an outsider to a chain. So there have been discussions amongst administration officials today about just how to be careful.
Any sense from the administration that this is a particular pain point? I mean, let's not forget that President Donald Trump, in his first run for the office, second run for the office, he kept saying emails, emails, emails relative to Hillary Clinton and her use of communications and private email servers. Any sense that this pain point is sort of because there's a little egg on the face here potentially?
Well, I do know that the National Security Advisor has kind of taken the brunt of some of the private criticism about this. The Secretary of Defense has skated a little bit on this. The real concern here was that the National Security Advisor was responsible for adding a reporter into a very private conversation. And I think that's the reason why you're not going to see them release the full conversation, is because these were supposed to be very private conversations. But I do think that the president sticking up for Mike Waltz has sent a signal. And I know the White House officials have told each other, let's bite our tongues. Maybe we don't necessarily think that this was a great thing and it's hard to defend, but we have to defend it. And you've seen outside advisors, including Steve Bannon, who have taken up that same kind of narrative, that same theme, and they have, like the president and like Pete Hegseth, started criticizing The Atlantic, criticizing Jeff Goldberg. Steve Bannon this morning said Goldberg is a hardcore Trump hater. He's the one who was accidentally added to that signal chain. And The Atlantic is a tool of the left. So even people who maybe don't really like Mike Waltz all that much, haven't liked him since the very beginning, are turning their fire onto The Atlantic and onto the media rather than internally onto Mike Waltz.
Right, but the question has to be, if The Atlantic has been known by the administration as being an unfriendly, if Mr. Goldberg has been known by the administration of being an unfriendly, why was he added to that text chain in the first place? And do you see any potential consequences for Mr. Waltz in the wake of this, or even calls for consequences from members of Congress?
Possibly. There has been some chatter, particularly from some more MAGA, more Trump-leaning people around the president, including members of Congress. But no, I don't see that. I know that the White House and White House officials, including the president, are watching these hearings today, watching how John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel respond to this very carefully. They're watching the news cycle to see how this all washes out, to see if more chatter picks up. But I'm told that they really are trying to deflect criticism onto The Atlantic, protect Mike Waltz, no matter how they feel about him, and the president is setting the tone for that.
Well, the president is also set to meet with his vice president, who, by the way, is said to have been included on that group chat. Any intelligence from you as to what that communication will be?
Well, J.D. Vance and the president are very, very close. J.D. Vance is one of his closest advisors. They're very honest and frank with each other. If they haven't had this conversation already, I'm sure that they will vent to each other about what happened with this signal chat and this inadvertent inclusion of a reporter that's not considered somebody that they are particularly fond of. So I would expect a lot of venting. I think they're going to be very, very honest with each other. If the vice president hasn't had a chance already to talk to the president about his point in that signal chat, that, listen, maybe these strikes on the Houthis is inconsistent with your message, which is about the Europeans freeloading on American military might. I'm sure they would have that conversation if they haven't already. So we will ask later what the discussion was about, but I would just expect it to be on a range of topics and to be very, very honest.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that update from the White House. Lon, if those walls behind you could talk, it could be a fascinating conversation today especially. Thank you very much.